So good morning. This is John Harmon, founder, president, and CEO of the African American Chamber of Commerce of New Jersey. And today we're honored to have a conversation with the founder, president, and CEO of the National Black Farmers, and also Mr. Dr. John Boyd. And joining him would be his wife, Kara Boyd. She is the event and program director of the National Black Farmers. But before I bring them on, there's a couple of announcements I would like to make. Today's conversation with the National Black Farmers is a very important discussion. USDA Foreclosure Moratorium, Climate and Tax Bill, Inflation Reduction Act, debt relief programs, racial equity is a part of the economic agenda. No food, no survival in society, no equitable participation, no survival of Black people. And that's what the conversation in part is all. Before we get into that, I just want to make you aware of a few upcoming activities for the African American Chamber of Commerce of New Jersey. We're all about positioning Black businesses in New Jersey and throughout the country for equitable success in the respective economies, be it New Jersey, be it various states, or be it anywhere in the United States, leveraging federal, county, state, and municipal, as well as private sector resources. And we do this in partnership with the National Black Chamber of Commerce and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, really forging policies that foster a level playing field in business. Next slide. Next week, September 3rd, September is already here. Wow. Another episode of Pathway to Success. Our television show starts at 9 a.m. locally on NJTV or njtvonline.org, so you can see it globally. And I'm looking forward to having a conversation with Chris Koch of H2M Architects and Engineers. Next. Business Leadership Conference. In a few weeks in New Jersey, we're going to host our annual Business Leadership Conference. This is an opportunity not only to network, but to forge relationships. Starting on September 20th, we're going to have a networking event concluding on the 21st with a full day business activity, strengthening New Jersey's economy together. We would encourage you to be in the building. This is our 15th anniversary celebration of the African American Chamber of Commerce. And these are 2 days of networking, but also fostering relationships that will derive mutual benefit to you and your business. So we would encourage you to register at AACCNJ.com. Next. Now, the National Black Farmers is 32nd annual convention at St. Augustine University, and I would encourage you to come and join us. I will be there November 4th to November 5th, and John and Carol will talk a little more about that during our talk today. We'd encourage you to register, and that information will be provided before we conclude today. But the focus of this discussion is to call attention to the economic disparities that exist between Blacks and the mainstream across the United States, and to direct our viewers to consider Black businesses as the solution. Affording Black businesses the opportunity to fairly compete for employment, professional service, and traditional lines of commerce within the marketplace is the best way to equitably strengthen the economy. So Dr. Boyd, we want to welcome you. Good morning. Today. We're going to talk a little bit about your upbringing in the South, the influence of your parents, the formation of the National Black Farmers. In addition, we will discuss the significance of business diversity in your industry and business in general, and moreover, the value proposition of Black farmers in your industries. So welcome.
Thank you, John. And I really appreciate you having this webinar. I think it's very, very important. And I would like to also recognize the leadership that you're providing in the state of New Jersey for Black businesses. It's something that's greatly needed. And I think you're doing just a tremendous job. Every time I come to New Jersey to one of your events, I leave there more motivated than I did before I came. So that's a good feeling to have. And New Jersey is also, John, a garden state. I mean, people forget that New Jersey is the garden state and had many, many farmers there. And some regions of New Jersey had many Black farmers at one time as well. So I'm gonna start talking about Black farmers there. And at the turn of the century, we had over 1 million Black farm families strong in the United States. 1 in 14 was Black. And we owned 20 million acres of land, primarily in the southeastern quarter of the United States, from the Virginia Delmarva line all the way down to the Mississippi and Alabama and Louisiana and Texas and Arkansas and Boot Hill of Missouri. So those where you're going to find Black farmers, and in the Midwestern states, the numbers are smaller. And then today we have about 2,000 or so Black farmers in the state of California. And we were organized in the 80s because Black farmers were losing land. We were being discriminated against by the United States Department of Agriculture. And in my home county here, Mecklenburg County, Virginia, there were many Black farmers going back many generations. I'm a 4th generation farmer, and I learned the skill set of farming from my dad, John Boyd Sr., and my grandfather, Thomas Boyd. And my mother's parents were sharecroppers, like many Blacks were in the South.
So John, why don't we step back a little bit, because you've laid a great foundation. And but I want to step back a little bit, because you've kind of introduced your parents and your grandparents and their involvement in farming. So a little bit about your background, your family, and just in general, growing up in the South. What was that like?
Well, growing up in the South was, for me, a wake-up call, because my birthplace was Queens, New York. So my parents left the farm in the late 50s and early 60s, moved to New York City like many Blacks did, looking for a better way of life. So the Great Migration also, hurt our Black land laws and Black farmers in this country. Many Blacks wanted to get away from the South and move towards the cities. And after my grandfather became ill, my dad's parents, Thomas and Martha Boyd, my dad is the last of 15 children. His mother had him at the ripe age of 50. So she got pregnant with him when 49 and gave birth to him at the age of 50. So a lot of women that's watching this who think it's too late for them. My grandmother, Martha Elizabeth Boyd, is somebody to look at, who had 15 children and had my dad at the age of 50. And they were farmers. They were proud, dignified farmers. And his farm, right now, we still have it in the family. We still save the family farm right along the Roanoke River. So anybody looking at the map can look at Interstate 85 and the Roanoke River, and you're looking at our family farm there.
Gotcha.
So we had a lot of history there, and my mother's parents were sharecroppers, Lee and Ruth Roberts.
So John, share with our listeners, sharecroppers. We hear that term. What does that term mean?
Sharecroppers, and I told you that my dad's parents owned their farm, so they bought land from the Boyd Plantation here in Bracy, Virginia, and Boynton, Virginia area. And my mother's parents lived on the farm. They didn't own the land, and they received the portions of the crops. So that's why they call it sharecroppers. So many Blacks didn't own land, but they were very skilled farmers, just like Lee and Ruth Robinson. And also they would do other things to make money. So they had 9 children, my parents, and they also sold bootleg whiskey.
Okay.
So I got to see the business side of blacks very early on.
Mhm.
My grandparents sold bootleg whiskey from Thursday.
Just like the Kennedys.
Yes, just like the Kennedy.
All
From
right, let's not leave that out.
And I really got to see everybody who came through there, had a little game with them, John. We know what that word means.
Right.
And some good time guys. And I got to see that part of life. And then I got to see what a straight black family looked like, which was Boyd and Martha Boyd, the deacons in the church. He opened the church up, and they sung out hymns from the church choir and all of these things.
Gotcha. So you mentioned at the outset there were 1 million black farmers at one time, over 20 million acres of land.
Yes.
What does that look like today?
Well, you've been here to our farm and you know what 1,000 acres looks like.
Right.
So 20 million acres of land, people, is a lot of real estate. And we're down to about 4 million acres roughly amongst blacks. So Bill Gates owned more land than all the black people together. And so does Ted Turner.
Okay.
Two individuals own more land than all the blacks put in this country. So for those business persons that are watching this and we think we have arrived, we haven't, because land ownership, John, is the possession and ultimate factor of power and the ability to borrow money. You know, when that banker sits across the table from you, he wants to know what are your assets? And I'm not talking about the two I'm sitting on, scratching on here. They want to know the real assets. How many acres do you own? Do you own some buildings in downtown New Jersey and some of these major cities here? You have to have real assets, and that's land ownership. And every good thing comes from land. The clean timber to build homes, cotton for clothes, food, healthy food. We're in the middle of a food crisis right now, and all of these things stem from America's farmers and not invested in America's farmers. In this case, denying access to blacks. So
gotcha.
The land piece is the element that my daddy taught me, and John Boyd Sr. and Thomas Boyd. They taught me how to step per acre of land off, 200 by 200. And
gotcha.
I would watch my grandfather walk his property over, and he always made sure that his neighbors respected his farm boundary lines. These are things that we've gotten away from. So gotten away from land ownership and farming because of slavery, and of Lee and Ruth Robinson being sharecroppers and all of the bad things that happen around that, and stealing land from blacks and stealing money from blacks. So we got a bad taste in our mouth for farming, land ownership, and food. And we have to change that now.
Gotcha.
So that's the basis of and you can take John Boyd's story and put it in Mississippi. You can put it in Arkansas. You can put it in Louisiana, and you're going to hear a similar story about blacks and the fellowship that came with land ownership. I can ride through the community and show you the black road where all the black farmers own the land at, and the white roads that white farmers own the land.
So when did you establish the National Black Farmers?
In the mid-'80s, about 1985.
So, okay.
Yes. So yes.
Go ahead.
And I was getting to the piece with the United States Department of Agriculture. That done the most damage was called the Farmers Home Administration. Today is called Farm Service Agency. So they changed the name, but they didn't change the way that they do business with blacks. On average, it took 387 days to process a black farm loan request, less than 30 days to process a white farm loan request. And they were practicing discrimination like it was daily bread for them. We called it colored, Negro, was some of the names that they were calling me in the 80s, John. And in the 80s, the word Negro was still on the federal loan application. And it was one of my first fights was to get the word Negro off of federal application, which we were able to do in 1991. But in that setting, I came from, I was a 3-letter man in high school, and I had Black friends, I had white friends. And walking into the United States Department of Agriculture was like walking back in time. That's what it felt like. This guy had, the Western thing on, and he chewed tobacco, and openly.
So walk me through, John, you've told me a number of stories about
Yes.
your experience when you went to apply for a loan.
Yes.
They only were open at certain hours of the day. Just
Black Wednesday.
Yeah, so share with
Yes.
walk our viewers through you arriving at this Department of Agriculture loan off, whatever you can describe the name. Just walk us through your arrival and what took place up until the time you had engagement and then left that particular office.
Well, they would, this particular office would only see Blacks one day of the week, Wednesday at 9 a.m. And we would all have the same letter, and we would all stand up in the hallway waiting to see this particular county supervisor. And one day we just looked at the letters, and they all had the same date and same time. So how's he going to see all these farmers at the same day, say the same time? But if they brought a white farmer in, John, while you were in the process of talking to him about trying to get a loan, he would stop as though you were invisible and get up, and his whole tone and dialogue and demeanor changed when he began to talk to the white farmer. I remember one day vividly, the white farmer comes, his name was Earl. That's all I know, Earl. And he stood up, and again, as if I'm invisible, I'm only asking for $5,000. So Farmer Earl comes in, he passes him a government check that looks like a tax refund check back in the day for $157,000 for a farm operating loan. And this is in the early 90s. And I'm looking at them, and they have pleasantries about their wives, and they were going to have steak dinner next week or something like that. And the farmer walks heading out the door, and he says, oh, Earl, I need you to come back in here next week sometime and fill out the application, because I just used last year's numbers to do this for you. So here, this guy had not even applied for a loan. He worked the paperwork up and gave him $157,000 farm operating loan. And he's telling me I can't get $5,000 farm operating loan to plant my tobacco crop. And during one year, John, farmers need farm operating loans, people, every year. So next year, I'm going back to try to renegotiate and get some more money to plant and harvest my crop. So I'm sitting in front of this guy, and he tells me that, well, boy, he often call you boy. I ain't gonna lend you none of my money this year. My money is taxpayer. I'm not lending you any of my money this year. And I really don't care. You need to stop coming back up here, because I'm gonna have to sell you out, and you're gonna have to go over here and milk cows and move your family over there with Bill Blaylock and milk some cows over there. I've already arranged for you in a tenant house over there. Now you need to sign these here papers here and sign your place back over here to Mr. Blaylock, and I done worked it out so you and your family could, basically, he wanted to make me a sharecropper.
Wow.
And that's when it hit the fan. I said, I'm not signing you know what. And I had no relationship today that I do with God. And it was all black man at this point, John.
Right.
So he spat tobacco juice on me.
Wow.
He spit on me.
Right.
And I had a brown khaki shirt on and some pants, farm clothes. And I watched that tobacco juice run down on my shirt. And for 15 to 30 seconds, I felt less than a man. Because and I wanted to whoop his behind,
I could imagine.
What we say in the country, take him to the woodshed. I wanted to drag his behind around there. Something said, don't hit him. So I walked up the hallway. I used the men's room, and I came back. I said, so you're not going to lend me any money? He said, nah, I told you I ain't lending you no money. And you better not come back in here anymore, and so on and so forth. And John, when I walked out of the office and I looked to my right, all of the government employees were standing outside. So what are they doing out there? And years later, I saw the lady that worked there from ran into her at the DMV. She said, "Do you know why we were outside?" She said, "We thought you were going to hurt that man." So you know, so
Wow.
that's how
Wow.
bad it was. And nobody, I was a young guy, and there were deacons in the hallway. There were one guy was a local county official. They were Black, and he's called me a boy, and we all knew the discrimination we were facing, but we have what's called old Black pride.
Mhm.
We knew that man was talking down to us, but we never talked about that. We were always talking about other things in the hallway, and he would leave the door open as he called these senior statesmen, Mr. Tisdale, and all these guys, boy and Negro, whatever y'all call yourselves. So this is very in your face, blatant discrimination that they practice every day with ease because, John, that's what they've been doing to us. And the way he was trying to get me to sign my deed over to a larger scale white farm in the community wasn't the first time he'd done that. He's been doing it. And most of the guys probably would do it, thinking,
Gotcha.
okay, this may be my way out and I can get some help that way. And I was from a different breed. I was an 80s kid. And he told me if I didn't learn how to say yes sir to him and no sir to him, I never was going to get a dime from him. I said, well, I probably won't. I said, because it's yes. I said, it's yes and no.
Now lead us up to, this was, I'm assuming, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, these types of experiences that you've just shared led up to the filing of your first suit against the federal government.
Oh, yeah.
And then, all right, so let's walk through that, and then you're lobbying Congress over 30 years to get that farm bill.
Yes, there was 5 members, including myself, that organized and formed the National Black Farmers Association. And we kicked around the name of Small Farmers Association, Minority Farmers Association, and we're in my house, 2-story house upstairs. And I said, well, the man was spitting on me because I'm Black. And he's my application, I'm throwing in the application because it's Black. And Linwood Brown said, well, nobody's going to help us if we say Black. Nobody's going to help us. We won't get no help from anybody. Linwood Brown was a very sharp guy, older guy. Sylvester Warren, another senior statesman, all older than me, deacons in the church, very, very dignified Black men, wise Black men. And John, it's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I didn't have any money, and they turned my lights out. And Sylvester Warren said, there it is. Don't get no damn blacker than this. We're going to call our National Black Farmers Association. So God then spoke to us. And that's how we came up with the name.
Okay.
Black Farmers Association. And after we began to file complaints at USDA, there's a reporter that done a series on the Black farmers in Richmond, Virginia newspaper, the most conservative newspaper in the country, the Richmond Times-Dispatch. And they were putting the story above the fold. And then the Associated Press started sharing those stories as wire stories. And then farmers from all over the country started calling us to be a part of the organization. And that's how we became organized. And we started filing lawsuits in every state in the South, in the federal courts. And we lost in every state of the federal courts. We lost, and we would make the changes to the complaint based on what that judge's comments was. Or they didn't show this, or they didn't show that. And by the time we got to Richmond, Virginia, Judge Thomas Flannery said he had never seen so much overwhelming discrimination in his whole career on the bench. But Board and his attorneys failed to apply the discrimination to the law, is what his ruling was. So he didn't certify us as a class, and he asked USDA to look at these cases individually. And our last stop was Washington, D.C., and we filed the class action lawsuit in federal court in Washington, D.C. And I'll never forget, I drove my Ford pickup truck right up 95 to the hearing, and I was expected to hear the same thing I was hearing in all of the other courts up and down the southeastern corridor of the United States. And I walked in with this judge. His name was Paul Friedman. And he said, I want to hear more about the discrimination described in Mr. Boyd's complaint. and I almost fell out my chair. And Mike Sitkoff, who won in DOJ against us in every court, he said, Judge Freeman, you can't hear this case. It lost in this state, it lost in that state, it lost in this state, and this simply isn't the case here, is what the Department of Justice was telling Judge Friedman. And so he said, we're not prepared to move forward with this case today. And Judge Friedman told Michael Sitkoff, never come in my courtroom and not be prepared to move forward. And I said, man, this is different. It felt different. And we wound up settling under Bill Clinton administration, former President Bill Clinton. And we had a meeting with him on December 17th, 1997. I had a sit-down meeting with him. And he said he was going to have his attorney general instruct USDA that we were going to settle this case. And they did. $50,000 for each farmer who was meritorious for taxes. And it's still the largest settlement in history for Blacks. So that first settlement paid out $1 billion. And so many Black farmers came after the filing deadline, almost like, compensating Black farmers. And, we lost the motion that USDA had to contact every farmer who had a complaint. So we lost the motion. So we had to do all of the outreach ourselves, John. Had no money. And basically, a lot of farmers said, hey, I didn't hear about this until it was over. The silent period in the first case was over. 83,000 Black farmers came late. And we then asked the Judge Friedman to allow those farmers to be a part of the case. He said only if Congress allows them and changes the law and allows them to be a part of this case would he hear them. So I set out again to go back to Congress. I had already been to Congress for the statute, to lift the statute of limitations with the help of Maxine Waters and Senator Chuck Robb from Virginia, lifting the statute back to 1981. So anyone who had a complaint, any Black farmer that had a complaint between 1981 and 1997 could be a part of the settlement. So I'm back at Congress again, and it took me 10 years to get that case, to get that legislation passed. Claims the late filers bill has simply allowed Black farmers to have their cases heard based on merit. So 83,000 Black farmers were able to do that. The case was finally paid out on, I think somewhere 2011, something like that. But the bill passed on December 8th, 2010 by former President Barack Obama, who is also, as a US Senator, one of the main, he was the lead person for the legislation in the Senate. So Obama introduced that bill for me, and he became president, and I actually went to work on his campaign very, very early on. So I said, well, I'm going to introduce this bill, and I may need some help in South Carolina. And John, by then I'm a seasoned veteran. I said, oh man, yeah, we got you. And sure enough, his Deputy Chief of Staff, Michael Strautmanis, picks up the phone and said, boy, can you get down to South Carolina tomorrow? And Senator Obama wants to talk about the Black Farmers Bill and invite some farmers, and I did. So I'm in Columbia, South Carolina, in the hotel there, and it was a small conference room, and I looked around and there was all these cameras in there, John. There was more cameras than there was chairs, and he's talking about possibly running for president and all of these things, and he says, I have John Boyd here, president of the National Black Farmers Association, and he's endorsing me, my candidacy to be president. And I was already working for Hillary Clinton. And I walked up there and I talked about the bill. And the reporter says, yes, she said, well, you never said you were endorsing him. Are you actually endorsing him or not? And I said, yes, I'm endorsing him. I got a call from my mentor, Ben Johnson. And boy, did he chew me and cuss me up. He said you've been 8 years out with George Bush, and you're going to be 8 more years out with Hillary Clinton. And I called my 2 top people who were advising me, and they said, "Well, John, how bad can it be? With you've been out here this long. The guy's your lead sponsor in the Senate. You got to get out here and work with him. So I was a very early on in that Obama person, and
Well, take us back a little bit, John. You share stories with me where, you would come into Washington with your wagon and your mule, and you had some conversation with Ted Kennedy as he was walking his dogs, and you said they told you no so many times, and it sounded like yes. So
absolutely, John. Well, I'm gonna take you a little further back. In 2003, I put my mule and wagon mules, 40 acres and struggle, and you know the significance of the name. 40 acres and a mule that blacks never got, and struggle because we were still struggling. And I drove them up the highway number 1 from my farm, 17 days. It snowed one day and all of that stuff. And I met some great people along the way. And I also met some people that didn't support the Black farmers movement. So I got to hear both sides of that. And when I got to Washington, I met with a lot of key legislators, and it kind of reopened the door for the Black farmers movement when it became stagnant. But yes, I spent days, and I would find out what door key members of the Senate came to work in, and I would be there. At this time, I had drove my tractor Justice from my farm to Washington, D.C., and I stayed there with the tractor. I would ride around in Washington, D.C. all morning long when they came to work, and I find out what door they came in, and I would greet them there. I said, my name is John Moore, and I need your support on the Black Farmers Bill, and I would give them that a 30-second spiel, John. I had to be able to lay it out there in 30 seconds, and I would ask them to support it. And so I heard, like you said, I heard no so many times that no meant maybe, and maybe meant yes. It's like asking a pretty girl out in school. You ever ask a pretty girl out in school, John? She kept telling you no, but you'll come back another way and tell you, boy, she ain't available. You try to go back and get her again. So no would eventually turn into yes if you stayed after it. And Congress was no different. And I would study everything about that member of Congress before I approached them. I knew his or her children's name. If they were in school, I would find out what college they were, and I would ask Congressman so-and-so about Susie and how she's doing. And when you do that, it lowers the bar, Republican or Democrat, and you take them down from the elected person to an individual person when you have to talk about your children to another person. That political hat comes off and the real person comes out. And these are things that I taught myself from just years of experience. So Ted Kennedy was the lead sponsor of the bill before former President Obama was, before he became sick. And I'm out there, it's like 8 o'clock at night. And he said, that bill ain't moved yet? This is Senator Kennedy asking me. I said, sure, the bill ain't moved. And I said, I was wondering if you could, if you could move it through the committee and ask for a markup. That's what I was asking him for, a markup on the bill. And he says, well, I got to walk my dogs. He said, my damn feet hurt. And he's taking his shoes off. And he had some bad dogs, John. He said, can you walk my dogs? He said, I'm gonna wait here, but I'm gonna talk to you. Just walk them around out here. And he had these 2 big poodles. So you can imagine me, 6 foot tall, big black burly man walking these poodles out at 8 o'clock at night on the Capitol, trying to talk to him about the late filers bill. So I'm walking his dogs, and he's telling me about his feet, and he's hurting. And these are things you have to do if you're really serious about bringing about change. So you have to forget about doing it the conventional way, people, and you can apply that mode to your business. Doing it the conventional way. Think about things that are unconventional but may also work. Some people will say, man, I wouldn't walk that man's dog. I would, because this is the lead sponsor of the bill. This is the guy who can ask the committee. At that time, John, there wasn't a US senator more powerful than Ted Kennedy that could get a bill to move. So I knew the significance of asking him to do that. And he says,
So
well,
what is before us today, John? You know, you talked about the two times that you guys have come to Congress, and the last time, first it was Bill Clinton, then President Obama, and now it's Joe Biden. What do we have before the United States right now, given all the money that's being doled out, not only across the country, but around the world, helping other folks in need? So tell us what's before us today, and what has been your experience right now trying to get something done here in the United States?
Well, I'm gonna take you back to every president from Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter as a kid, as an FFA student, and the same person that I just told you about, my mentor Ben Johnson, who took me in the Bill Clinton, arranged a meeting with Bill Clinton, who arranged a meeting with Al Gore, was the guy who was wearing the afro in the 70s, and who took me in to see Jimmy Carter. And when I started protesting, this black guy comes out. He's a tall, slim guy, really handsome fellow. And he says, "You don't remember me, do you?" And I said, no. I said, "No, I don't." I was mad. I was out there with a mule. I said, "Nah, I don't know you." And he said, "I'm the guy who took you in to see Jimmy Carter, former President Jimmy Carter." And it's ironic that you see the same faces over your career. With that, I want to tell people who are also advocates and business people, be mindful and respectful of those African Americans in key positions that can do things, because Ben Johnson was one of those guys. He's not a popular on the media, but from those presidents, he was the guy. Ben Johnson was, and he became my mentor. So I wanted to tell that. There was meetings with Ronald Reagan. I had meetings with both President Bush's, and the most folksy guy was President Bush's son, George W. Bush. I'm getting that, Kara. Kara's wants me to speed up, but I wanted to tell the history that all of the presidents was involved, both Republican and Democrat. So this wasn't, I don't want people to look at this and think, oh, this is just a Democratic thing. I've been asking people to help us, Republican and Democrat, for close to 40 years. So in those 30 years, I was also asking for a measure, a debt relief that wasn't included in either our settlement. And I went to Congress to get some language there. It was in the Farm Bill, in the 2016 Farm Bill. Language was there for Black farmers to get debt relief. That language was stripped out, and then they came back through Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey and Ralph Warnock from Georgia, introduced a piece and a part of the American
Rescue Plan
Act of 2021 that included debt relief. And I was excited. $5 billion would it be? $4 billion for debt relief and $1 billion for outreach and technical assistance and resolve discrimination cases. And then white farmers started suing us.
John, let's make sure people understand that it was American Rescue Plan Act, Section 1005 was the emergency debt relief for farmers of color that made it in, and Section 1006 was the outreach component. So we think it's very important for people to have the facts. You know, we're not taking this out of context. What we want to make sure is that individuals know you can go to government text websites and you can read the language for yourself. So it's very important. I think part of the mission for the National Black Farmers Association is to share information, but to make sure that people get the facts and they're able to verify those facts. I think that's missing a lot of times now in accountability and transparency. It's he said, she said, but okay, can you show me? And, you know, that's what John and I are having to bring to the table now, because there's a lot of misinformation and confusion, and people just don't know what's what. So that's why it's very important. Thank you, John, and everyone at the New Jersey African American Chamber of Commerce for having this today. So I apologize for jumping in, but, you know, I'm the event and program coordinator, and I get the majority of the calls. And so what's happened today does have a lot of historical context and background. And I also want to add, because there was a viewer who asked about the Native American farmers, and my hat goes off to John. I'm an enrolled member of the Lumbee Tribe of North Carolina. John helped me. I founded the Association of American Indian Farmers. John had already founded the National Women Farmers Association, which assisted with the women and Hispanics class action discrimination. It was a complaint that was never certified as a class, but the Native American case went on to be certified, and it's now known as Keep Eagle. So I wanted to stop and kind of back up and give a shout out to John and the leadership of the National Black Farmers Association, because they paved the way not only for Black farmers, but also Native American and Hispanic farmers and other minority farmers in this country, and really advocated for the debt relief that we had that was passed in that measure. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Carol's very passionate.
Oh, this is good.
And you could hear it in the voice, John. But debt relief is what white farmers were getting with ease. So I want the viewers to understand the difference. Debt relief is when they max out at USDA, they have some financial difficulties, and they apply under 1951S. They could do a lot of things on the USDA can do a lot of things on 1951S. They can reamortization, they could write a portion of your debt off, or they could write it all off. White farmers were getting debt relief with ease in this country when farmers like myself were not. Even when, after I settled my case, former Agriculture Secretary Dan Glickman instructed that racist man who was discriminating against me to provide Mr. Board with debt relief. And he said he wasn't doing so-and-so. So long story short, he still didn't provide me with debt relief, even with a settlement agreement. He told them that he wasn't going to do it. So what do you think the other Black farmers were getting? They weren't getting debt relief. So white farmers were getting in with ease, and I was asking for debt relief the whole time. So I was elated when this bill finally passed. I was going to provide that to 14,000 Black and other farmers of color to provide debt relief for 120%. 120%, which means they get their debt written off for 100% and 20% to pay the taxes. Pretty decent deal, people. Then white farmers started suing us, saying it was reverse discrimination to compensate farmers of color. And they quote unquote said exclude white farmers. What they aren't telling the public is they were the ones who got all the doggone debt relief. That's why I was trying to get it through Congress and through two complaints, because white farmers were already getting it. And some white farmers have received debt relief multiple times when Black farmers haven't received it any time. So
where are we with the bill today? We got about 10 minutes left.
Okay,
so,
I'm getting there.
It got repealed.
Yeah, Carol won't let me say. Go ahead, Carol.
They took it back in the inflation.
So they, meaning, help me with
Congress,
that.
and actually Senator Cory Booker was at the helm. He and Senator Reverend Warnock actually championed the repealing of the Section 1005 of the American Rescue Plan Act. What they thought was that if they repealed it, we think it was good, with good intention, but the devil's always in the details. So they repealed Section 1005, thinking that the white farmers would voluntarily dismiss their lawsuits, which there had been 2 temporary restraining orders preventing the payout to the farmers. So over a year and a half, these farmers are waiting for this debt relief. They have a signed, executed agreement saying that that debt was paid in full. This is how much money we're going to send you, and ignore future collection notices. And then all of a sudden they started getting collection notices. Then they started getting graduation letters. And we even have a Black farmer that was served with a foreclosure notice in July. And so with the repealing of this, they're thinking, oh, we're just going to make that moot, and we're going to open it up to now all economically disadvantaged farmers. So that means even white farmers, everyone can apply now. But the
farmers
difference,
are distressed farmers, 2 sections.
But the emphasis now is that some of those farmers who were going to get the 120% debt relief now will not qualify for this loan modification under the Inflation Reduction Act, sections 2200 6, 7, and 8, if I'm not mistaken. I have to go back and check the numbers. It's unusual for me to forget them, but we'll make sure that, that we share those links.
So help me understand this. So we had 2 Black senators, one in Georgia, one in New Jersey, advocating for this.
Well, they
advocated They supported, initially they supported the legislation to advance this, and then they reversed their position to advocate to have it removed.
No, let's do the 40-acre analysis, okay?
Okay.
So not only did they advocate it in the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, it was passed and signed into law by President Joe Biden that these farmers would get it. It was the law of the land. And then the white farmers were doing, so they came up with this, I guess, plan of action to get the white farmers' cases moved so that it was no longer an issue. So they just repealed it. And I have to go on record and say, but they never spoke to John and I. And John and I, our organizations are both parties to those white farmer lawsuits. We have attorneys. We filed a motion to intervene because there was a divergence that we no longer agreed that USDA could represent the interest of the Black farmers and the Native American farmers. And the judge granted our motion. So here we are, party to this lawsuit, fighting, very hard, and have been for decades, for these farmers to get this debt relief. And now this new measure is written into the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 to repeal it. And they never said anything to us. So then we see it when it passes and gets to the House. And, we're like, hold up, wait a minute. Do you guys really understand the ramifications if you do this? And we had other people coming out talking about how good it was. And we're like, it's really not. And then it passed. And so that's where we are now.
It's like this.
So let me ask another question here. So if white farmers historically were able to get debt relief, right? And now Black farmers and other farmers of color are applying for the same, right? Why is that?
Anyway, anytime Blacks have to compete with money for whites, I can tell you it's a poor formula for Black people. And history shows that. All of the numbers at USDA show that. That's why we were suing, because we weren't getting the money in the first place.
Right. So my point being is, if they were getting money already, why would they be able to?
They're gonna get it again. They're gonna get it again, and they're gonna get most of it because they are populators, 96%. So out of that 96%, there are going to be more white farmers are saying that they're distressed than it is Black people. We're 1 or 2%.
So where's the president on this right now? What are you trying to hide?
John, somewhere hiding. And I'm very disappointed in the president. I'm very disappointed in Democratic leadership. I've been a Democrat all my life. And only Black Democrat farmer in this county, and they're out here investigating me, USDA. So you only Black farmer, the only Democratic farmer in the county, and say you're going to investigate them. So that's the current situation here. And then you have the administration who repealed it. And now the president said he was going to have a meeting last July. He hasn't had a meeting to talk about not just Black farmers, but the food crisis, food shortage, the inflation, and all of the input costs that we have. And then you have Chuck Schumer, who comes on Joe Madison's show in Washington, D.C. and said, well, board's just disappointed about the farm moratorium, the farm foreclosures, and we're going to work with them in putting in place a farm moratorium. We haven't heard a word from his office, and I've reached out to him. There's been no meeting there. So Democrats are hiding because they know that this is a sour grape. But I'm going to hold strong here, because when you believe in something, you got to fight for it. And just white farmers folded don't mean you got to fold. What's wrong with standing and going toe to toe for something that you know is right? And I believe if we stayed in court and you really check all of the details, you would see that white farmers got all of the relief in this country through all of the subsidies, and Blacks and other farmers of color got very, very little.
So you're saying there's 4% of the farmers are Black and farmers of color, and 96% are white.
Black and other. Well, Black and other. So Hispanic, Native American, we're 1 or 2%.
2%.
So, and then you have the
Okay.
other percentage of Hispanics and Native Americans, but 96% are probably mostly white men. That
Gotcha.
get these, going to call themselves distressed. And the
Right.
Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack, I believe, is the wrong person there. You know, John, you can't do something if your heart isn't in it.
Mhm.
I don't believe he's moving quickly enough. He had enough time to pay the debt relief. He chose not to do it. He had a year, almost a year and a half to settle discrimination under Section 1006. He didn't settle the first case, but Congress sent another bill back over there to him and now saying, boy, but we need you to believe that this secretary is going to do it with no discretion. I mean, full capacity to do what he wants to do with the money, with no time ramifications for this secretary. He's the wrong man at the wrong time in history, and asked the president not to send him there. He did anyway, and now he doesn't want to come to the table because it's not going to be a sweet and rosy meeting. But
Gotcha.
I'm going to continue to press forward, and as you heard, John, guess what? I ain't gonna never ever give up.
Gotcha.
John,
So let me ask you this. What can people do as we wind down here to support your effort? Give Carol, tell us exactly what is needed at this time.
Carol, she better beat me on my shoulder, so she'd have beat the hell out of me over here, John. She got to get it. John, we need resources. While the grass is growing, the cows are starving. The bottom line is we never get the money. So they sent $50 billion to Ukraine and they made sure they got it. They sent $150 billion to Ukrainian farmers with infrastructure so that they can get tractors and equipment, things I've been asking for Black farmers in this country for nearly 4 decades and we can't get. They're telling us we got to wait, but they can help everybody else.
With taxpayer dollars.
With your money, and they don't want me to talk about this. It's wrong. Help people here in America first. Black farmers are United States citizens. And we're told we got to wait, but you can get the aid to other portions of the regions of the country with no restraints. Just get the money out to the farmer. They need to be doing the same thing to Black farmers. But we need help, we need support, we need resources.
We have a GoFundMe.
Yeah, there you go. Go ahead, Carol. It's my stolen sword, y'all. Let me slide over. Come on.
We have a GoFundMe page, but we also have our website, blackfarmers.org. You can go to the website, you can donate, you can get involved, and you can also request assistance. One of the greatest struggles right now for our farmers is that those who are delinquent have been reported so on a federal debt. So they're not eligible for funding from HUD. They're not eligible for funding from the Department of Education. How are their kids going to go to school? So these are the impacts, negative impacts and ramifications for this repealing. And we just don't have a time frame. So what we're asking is for President Biden to issue all farm foreclosure moratorium. They're saying now that farms aren't being foreclosed on, and that's just not the truth. There's so much to weed through here. And once that farmer is served with that foreclosure and it's ruled, we're not getting it back. John can tell you, he lost a farm that was sold at foreclosure because of USDA. That's how we've lost so much land. And if we don't put the brakes on it right now, until we have time to sort through this, whether it be in Congress or in the courts, those farms, once they're gone, they're going to be gone. Our farmers are selling land, they are selling equipment, and they're selling their livestock because they need to make these payments that are now due that they didn't think were due. And they went out and they made other financial decisions. And that's the crisis, not only farm, but also food, because now you're going to see it in your grocery stores. And so it's going to impact every American citizen as we move, not only into the winter, because there are farmers out in the Midwest who are in disaster states of emergency right now. They can't get the funding from USDA and they're exempt from the funding from SBA. SBA loans exempt agriculture producers. You can do agriculture and you can do ag-related, but a farmer can't get the money. Come on, America, we can do better. And we should have been doing better.
And John, we haven't heard from athletes. We haven't heard from people like Oprah Winfrey, who really have a megaphone that could sound the alarm, just by talking about this or sharing it on social media. So our community of people that we see every day on ESPN and have their own television networks haven't done enough. They told us some fiction story about a farmer in Louisiana, but they won't tell the real story about what's going on with Black farmers, how we're losing land, and again, how we've just lost pretty much $4 billion in debt relief to Black and other farmers of color. We never can seem to get the money, and it's just like 40 acres on a mule. You know, they promise it to you, but you never get it. And again, while the grass is growing, the cows are completely starving because we can't get to the money. So we need people to start talking about this, start talking about it in your churches, educate your business friends and those significant persons out there too. Talk to the people who control these investment funds for these large companies. They need to start giving back and helping America's Black farmers. The people who made it what it is.
No, so John, that's great. So Kara, tell us about the upcoming conference. And that'll be the last word.
Not over now, John, because this Kara's baby. Go ahead, Kara.
Well, I'm glad you asked. And, you know, the thing is, people ask all the time, you know, how can I become a farmer? What do I need to do? So we have this conference. It's 2 days. It's interactive. And I tell people the first step to becoming a Black farmer is self-identification. There is no minimum land size requirement and there's no minimum annual sale. There are people in New York and New Jersey making 6 figures on a rooftop. Come on, people, we can do this. You know, the difference is a farm is a business, it's an occupation. You know, a lot of people are familiar with gardening. Gardening is considered a hobby, but it's your at-home business. And you can write it off on your taxes, your mortgage, your car payment, your utilities. And so we need to make sure that our communities, people can join us for the conference in person. It's free to attend, but they can also join virtually if need be. And we just want to make sure that people come, get the information and hear it from the horse's mouth instead of his rear end. You know, we're not out here trying to spread falsehoods. We're out here trying to, you know, make everyone aware and be informed decision makers, because that's how we mitigate financial risk, is with financial literacy and educating our people. So we want to make sure that.
So the date, location, and where they can register.
It's November 4th and 5th. It's going to be at St. Augustine's University in Raleigh, North Carolina. And it's free to attend. And people can go to our website and join there. The tickets are also available free of charge on Eventbrite.
And your website?
blackfarmers.org.
All right. Thank you, Kara. Thank you, John. And what we've learned today is that this is a real crisis for Black farmers. And this is something, your participation in the economy, helping fuel the food supply, is critically important. But moreover, you guys are a great example of perseverance, integrity, and focus. So I think those are attributes that any business could embrace and apply to their business model. And so we will continue to keep you in our prayers and encourage you to press forward. And thank you and have a great weekend.
Thank you, John. We love you, brother.
Love you too. Be
Thanks
well.
a lot,
I'll see you in November.
My man. Thank you, John.
Thank you to the boys. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye, John.